to lose three brothers to come to that position of gratitude.
Right.
I think anybody that's dealt with anything really, really difficult, when you get on the other side of the experience and you have time to reflect back on it, I always say that the illusion in life is a life without suffering.
My mission is to empower women to fearlessly embrace and live their authentic lives. In the worldwide of health problems, a topic often overshadowed is rare diseases. These conditions are classified as rare if they are affecting fewer than 200,000 people at any given time in the United States. Astonishingly, there are over 6,800 distinct rare diseases in existence. While some rare diseases are genetic and evident from birth, others remain dormant until later stages of life. A heartbreaking statistics reveals that approximately 2/3 of Americans suffering from rare diseases are children. The truth is, rare diseases touch all of us in some way, as we are all connected to someone affected by one. Rare diseases constitute a significant and often overlooked public health concern. Shockingly, nearly 95% of these 7,000 known rare diseases lack any form of treatment or cure. What's more, many rare diseases manifest early in life, and tragically, approximately 30% of affected children do not make it to their 5th birthday. It's a stark reality that about 30,000 million people in the United States, half of them children, live with a rare disease. Adding to the gravity of the situation, these diseases are often chronic, worsening over time and posing life-threatening challenges. Furthermore, arriving at a correct diagnosis can be an agonizingly long and frustrating journey, sometimes taking years of testing and enduring misdiagnoses. During this time, a patient's health can deteriorate significantly. The discussion today will take on an emotional turn as we talk with our special guest, Cristol O'Loughlin. Her personal journey has been marked by the devastating loss of her 3 older brothers to rare disease. As a founder and CEO of Angel Aid Cares, Cristol is fiercely passionate about providing social, emotional, physical, and financial relief to caregivers, particularly mothers of children with rare diseases. A former UCLA instructor, she co-founded the advertising firm, The Craftsman Agency, and is humbled to advise global brands like NBA, Disney, Fox, Cisco Systems, and Google. During her tenure at IBM Life Sciences, she helped accelerate advancements in biotechnology. She has also been a powerful speaker at TEDx, where she talks about the importance of caring for caregivers, which I highly recommend all of you to listen and watch. It is our privilege, Cristol, to have you on my show today. Welcome to Female Fluence. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Pearl. I am so honored, and I'm so impressed with all of your research about our community. It's a massive community, but it's not often well known. And so I appreciate the deep dive that you did to explain it.
Of course, I really feel like we need to bring awareness because the very first time that I heard you speak, I was personally not aware of such a big problem that we have in the world. Because it's not really talked about. It's not given that the attention that it needs. So I'm glad we have you here. So I think what we're going to do is I think our listeners would first like to get to know you better, kind of take us back to your childhood and your family and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So, well, as a backdrop, Angel Aid as an organization has been around for, 23 years now. So we started Angel Aid in the year 2000. And I started it because 3 of my 4 older brothers had passed away from a rare genetic disease called mucopolysaccharidosis. The common name is Hunter syndrome. And I'm the youngest of 5 children. My parents, Richard and Phyllis Barrett, are Southern California natives and met in high school at Western High School. He was captain of the football team. She was head drill team leader, and they fell fast in love and got married at 19. They had 5 kids in rapid succession, 8 years. And it became obvious as the children were developing, as my older brothers were developing, that they weren't all developing at the same rate, and they weren't meeting the different milestones that my oldest brother, Richard, was kind of like the golden child. And David and Jared and Randy were not sitting up as fast. They weren't, holding their head as strongly. And those intuitive moments that a mother has were brushed off. My mother went into the pediatrician many times and said, David's not developing, Jared.
She had a feeling, yeah.
She had a feeling, like a deeply intuitive feeling. And because these diseases are so rare and obscure, a doctor in defense of the pediatrician could go a whole career and never see something like this, right? It wasn't until she said, why can't David straighten his arm? And then that was a clue to the doctor that there was a skeletal issue going on. And so one thing led to another. They received the diagnosis. Now, that seems like the moment when all the relief should come, like, oh, thank goodness we have this diagnosis.
Right.
But then the other shoe drops, and this is happening all over the world, across the 7,000 rare diseases. Some say closer to 10,000 rare diseases now, because our diagnostics are getting so specific. But the other shoe is dropping for families around the world, which is, we have no treatment, we have no cure. You need to take your children home and love them as best you can. And that is just a tragedy. It's such it's the worst possible imaginable outcome as a parent. That does not align with your hopes and dreams.
I can't even imagine, like, it doesn't go into my brain, like, to be at a doctor's office and this is like something that they tell you.
It's almost it is unimaginable, and it actually really isn't okay. It isn't okay for us to send families home to shore themselves up emotionally, because what happens is crisis sets in, panic sets in, anxiety, depression, rates of divorce go up, rates of addiction go up. All the really difficult things that happen in families happen in an intensified way, in an acute way, in rare disease families. And so we know what to do. We have the good science and the research, and those efforts need to continue. And we're not proposing that we stop trying to find treatments and cures, but we're largely failing our families at this point. And I think it's time for honesty in this conversation with all of the healthcare stakeholders, and a recognition that until there are treatments and cures, there is a very predictable pathway of distress. And based on that, let's provide the emotional tools. How can we provide support groups? How can we provide therapeutic support to the whole family, the patient, the caregivers, the siblings, the grandparents, the uncles, the aunts? And what about the professional community, the teachers, the patient advocates, the nurses, the doctors and pediatricians are all on this journey together. And it is very challenging, and it is very emotionally draining and exhausting and often hopeless for people. And so the best way to break through hopelessness, the best way to break through isolation and despair, is to bring in that kind of heart-led response of deep listening and just and witnessing.
To feel like you have a community you can turn to. That's so important.
Yep. Just commiserate with me, right? I'm just sort of going through, and it's the promise of treatment and cure that just adds to sort of this ongoing worry. Are we ever going to get there? And then when we don't get there, you mentioned it, half the patient population of 350 million families is children. A third of those children won't see their fifth birthday. So should those 5 years be spent in, pokes and prods and clinical trials? Possibly, maybe, but that should be an informed parent's decision. We're talking about pediatric palliative care. We're talking about very open conversations about children in hospice. And those conversations are difficult, but if you can work through those conversations and come into a place of acceptance, then those families have an opportunity to give the very best life that they can.
Right. Those
to their
last few
child.
years that can be really, really fulfilling.
Yes. And permission to themselves for grace and forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Now, Crystal, from the time that your brothers were diagnosed, how long did it take for them to gradually, progressively get worse and pass away?
Yeah. So David and Jared and Randy passed away in the 1980s. They were 12, 18, and 19 years old when they passed away. I can tell you that there were a lot of really joyous moments in our families. If you've ever been around unique ability children, you know that even though my brothers didn't have the ability to walk and talk, they did have the ability to communicate at the heart. And so we communicated through,
It was a language of love.
Of love. Yes. It's a lot of, it's just, especially as a child, and I was the youngest.
How old were you?
Well, I was the youngest. So, Randy and I were 2 years apart and, 18 months in cycles above that. So when Randy passed away, I was 10. When David passed away, I was 14. And when Jared passed, I was 15, almost 16. And, you're a caregiver as a child, right? And my role was always to bring the love and the smiles and the energy, the positive energy. I think my brother, as the oldest, had much more responsibility for, the realities of caregiving, clearing lungs at night, changing diapers, and 10-year-olds, that sort of thing. It's just, like I said, pretty unimagimaginable, and
that's a really tough age as normally to have to endure such a tragedy. It's just, I can't even imagine. I have goosebumps. Like, you're talking and I literally have goosebumps right now.
Well, I am in company with many other siblings around the world, and when difficult things like that happen to you as a person, you do ask that question, like, why me? Why is this happening? And I can tell you, through a lifetime of asking that question, what I've realized is that so often these experiences, they marinate your heart. They make you more empathetic.
Right.
They make you more sensitized to people's emotions and make you more really sensitized to sort of crisis and tragedy around you. And that can have very negative impacts on siblings. In my case, it made me just very, very grateful to be alive. My brothers didn't all get the opportunity to live out their lives. And so I've always sort of passed through life with this just gratitude, like, I'm going to make the best of every day. And I don't think you need to lose 3 brothers to come to that position of gratitude. Right. I think anybody that's dealt with anything really, really difficult, when you get on the other side of the experience and you have time to reflect back on it, I always say that the illusion in life is a life without suffering. Right. It's like, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and although I empathize with some of the challenges and the dramas that she experiences as she's growing up, the false reality is that you're just going to go through life and everything's going to be all like happy Instagram smiles and perfect. And, suffering is what actually sows the seeds of empathy. That's how you're able to have that empathetic response to somebody that is going through their own suffering of some kind. It doesn't have to be the same kind. It's just the fact that you've kind of gone through those
That is such a powerful statement. I love it. It's very true. You're very right. And I have 2 teenage daughters. I agree. We have to constantly remind them, the real problems, and as much as compassion as we can have for what they go through on a regular basis being teenagers, but just reminding them of gratitude and what life is really all about. And some suffering, it helps you grow and evolve, and your perspective changes. So
yes,
so now,
absolutely.
Crystal, I know, like, for example, all of us have dreams and we all say, oh, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make a change. But I know we often manifest this, but what triggered you to finally, because I know that's not what you did initially for your career.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
was a final trigger that forced you so passionately to dive in and say, I'm going to create a community. I'm going to make Angel Aid be what it is today. What
Mhm.
happened? How did that come about?
Yeah. You go through a difficult time. My brothers did pass away in the 80s, and then, like a typical teenager, I'm all about myself. So I went and got my degree from UCLA in communication studies, and I went straight into advertising and worked with some amazing global brands. And I got recruited into IBM. And I was in IBM working in technology, media and entertainment, and working with some of the largest entertainment companies on the planet on how to digitize movies, how to create digital libraries, searchable, movie
That's fun.
structures. It was really fun. We launched the NFL.com, the PGA.com, Disney.com. We launched all of these first generation web presences when nobody knew how to do it. IBM was it was cool to be blue. We were the trusted advisors. And so I got to learn these really amazing sort of strategic business skills,
Right.
how to sit down with executives and translate, business requirements into technology solutions. And I loved it, but it wasn't hitting me at the heart, and I started looking around the company, and they were launching this new division called the Life Sciences Division. And I was like, what's that? And it was all about genetics. And of course, I have this background in carrying this rare genetic disease, and hadn't really explored that. And I thought, well, gosh, if I can get paid to show up every day and learn about, genetics and how technology can influence the development of drugs and the development and the acceleration of science and bioinformatics, cheminformatics, that would be really aligned work for me.
Right.
And so I moved over to that group, and we actually mapped the human genome, which I just think is so cool.
Wow.
Like you weren't actually able to, do a DNA test. Like 23andMe didn't exist if we didn't map the human genome first, right? So map the human genome and establish this partnership with National Geographic. And you can actually do like, cheek swabs, and really get multi-generational views on your ancestry and where your genetics, is stemmed from
Right.
in time and in history. And so that was all very, very fascinating. But really what I wanted to be was a mom. And I was loving all this work that we were doing. But I met my husband and we got pregnant, and that was a long journey. We kind of met a little later in life. And I took 4 years of maternity leave. IBM is #1 in Working Woman magazine. You can actually take 4 years off.
That's incredible.
Isn't that crazy? I know. They call it a life-changing event. So you could take 4 years for going back to college, or 4 years to care for an aging parent, or 4 years to care for your child. So I took the full 4 years, and then it was time to come back to work. And by then we were in the recession and they were laying off my team. And so I ended up starting an advertising agency, and using a lot of the marketing and advertising skills that I had learned at IBM, but just putting them in service to technology companies like Cisco and VMware, and also big media companies like the Walt Disney Company and 20th Century Fox. And so here I have this big career and I'm traveling all over the world and, very uber connected, probably not sleeping enough, probably not taking care, burning the candle at both ends like we do as mothers all the time. And I went in for a routine mammogram and I came out with a breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh my goodness.
And so I say, to all the women out there, if you're listening and you're in your, 40s and then in that stage where you're meant to start getting regular mammograms, please, it saved my life. They caught it early. Obviously, I took time off of work, had a double mastectomy, went through my treatment protocols. But during that process, time shifts. You think like, oh, I'm going to be on the planet. I'm very grateful to be alive because of what happened to my brothers, but I always thought I would do my angel aid work and my nonprofit work when I retire, like later in life. And then suddenly later in life, comes
a little closer than you anticipated.
And you're like, wait a second, maybe I don't have all the days on the planet that I thought I would have. And I just remember feeling like forever changed. And that, I don't want to waste any more time. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but to the work or the clients that I had before. But I was like, wait a second, I have all these skills. I have this network. I have all this ability. And what I kept witnessing over, multiple decades was we're putting so much energy into research and science for rare diseases, but we still have a big fat zero. We still have zero cures. So even for 100 years worth of science and research, we're failing the community. And it's so hard to admit that because it sounds like defeatist. It sounds like ungrateful. It sounds, it sounds like, let's not talk about that. That's going to kill hope in all these families. It's like, no, let's just talk honestly about what's going on here. We've got 350 million families. We're talking 1 in 10 American families. I mean, these are your friends and your neighbors, and you may not even realize it because it's under the guise of diseases that we know about, but we don't realize they're part of the category called rare diseases. So cystic fibrosis is a rare disease. Multiple sclerosis is a rare disease. Scleroderma is a rare disease. Tay-Sachs, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Many of the autism and epileptic treatment diagnoses are actually foundationally caused by a genetic component that's in the rare disease category, right? And so there's this massive community that's experiencing acute caregiving at home, right? This is extreme caregiving. We're all caregivers in some way, but what we're talking about is basically running ICU interventions in your home environment, feeding tubes and just things that you just never thought as a mother or a father or a family member that you would be doing at home. And so we're in this weird crux right now where people are living longer than ever. Patients are living longer than ever. The patients that used to pass away as children, the medical system is able to keep these children alive longer than ever, to the point where they're now in young adulthood and coming to the realities emotionally of, okay, I'm living with this disease. I'm going to live a shortened lifespan. I mean, we have rampant depression and anxiety in our patient communities of teenagers and young adults that never existed 10, 20 years ago because they didn't live that
too young,
long.
right?
Yeah, they were too young. And then think about how hard it is you as a mother, me as a mother, working with a neurotypical child and their dramas and intensities and, as a teenager, and then you layer in all of these rare disease symptoms and, other symptoms. So it's heartbreaking. It really is. And I couldn't sleep at night. I was waking up every night going, who is caring for these families? And did a lot of research, looked around and realized there are pockets of care, but there isn't an organized, thoughtful, community-wide approach or even recognition that there's need for emotional well-being and mental health care in the rare disease community. So at one point, I just said to Jim, I said, I wrote a poem. It's called "I Am the One." he goes, he goes, "What's that all about?" And I go, "I don't know, download from God. I don't know what you want to call it, but there's a mantle here. I've got to pick it up and run with it. I can't set the chalice down. Like it, I've
You
got to
just realized what your purpose was. You were chosen. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Like there's got to be a purpose to all of this lived experience, all of this, professional experience. And if I can use my influence and bring relief to one woman, I got to do it."
That's it.
And,
That's all.
and here we are. We have almost 15,000 families in Angel Aid today.
Goodness.
So we've grown very rapidly in the last year. It's really exciting. It's a little harrowing, but it's very exciting. But I know that we're onto something because people are coming in droves, into our community. So I'm like, obviously there's a need. If we're getting, the joining numbers.
For sure, there's a need. Now, I mean, emotionally, how do you deal with this? Because I know it's like hard to revisit kind of the experiences that you had witnessed as your parents, went through that pain, or you did personally yourself. How are you strong enough to revisit this situation and the pain and see how these families and what they're going and give them that reassurance?
Okay, so I have two answers to that. So one is for me personally and everyone on our team, because we are living in crisis with our community every day. I talk about energy flow. So energetically, our role is not to fix. Our role is to witness. So we're just creating space for the community to witness each other. And as the energy flows in a support group or during one of our wellness retreats, or through writing of a blog or some sort of interview that we do, I just talk about the energy flowing through. Let the energy, we're like a filter, just let the energy flow through you and then back out again. You're not here to hold this energy in your body and keep it contained. It's really just this kind of like, we're here to just kind of move the energy around and get it going. So I know that sounds a little woo-woo and a little out there, but it's an important mental visualization for the team, because and for myself, I need to know that I can lay my head on the pillow every night and go, okay, I did the best I could today, and I'm going to sleep deeply, and I'm going to wake up in the morning, and I'm going to do the best I can for this next day, right? So obviously I'm emotionally impacted by what we witness, but I don't hold on to it so deeply that it then becomes like an impact to me personally. That's one answer. The other answer is my parents. So they are the strongest people I know. They did meet and fall in love and marry at 19. They also divorced 11 years later because it was so deeply impacting on their lives. They didn't have the skills as these like 20-something-year-olds to try to sort through the best pathways. And they didn't have things like IEPs. There wasn't the internet where you could do virtual support groups. The answer was you need to institutionalize your children and move on with your life. And that, was just a very, very difficult journey for both of them. So they did divorce. Both of my parents remarried a second time, divorced again. They both remarried a third time. They were together with their spouses for 20 plus years. And then they widowed within a year of each other, both of them widowed, lost their third spouses within a year of each other. And it just happened to be the same year that our daughter Chloe was born. And just the miracle of her coming into the world. I am a carrier of MPS, so it was not a straightforward journey to bringing a child into the world. But Chloe came into the world. She's also a carrier of MPS, so she's going to have her journey with Hunter syndrome when she goes to build a family. But she came into the world, and that joyousness just bonded my parents. They got back together. So my parents have been back together the last 15 years. And they actually just remarried in April of 2023. So they were married in January of 1963. They remarried April of 2023, 60 years later, right?
Cristol,
And
this is an amazing story. I
isn't
mean,
this a
it's like
crazy
they were
story?
meant to be together.
Yes, yes. And you know, the forgiveness, the honesty, the acceptance, the unconditional love that has to happen in a relationship and in yourself first, and then in the
Yes, of
relationship,
course.
right? All of that, I've been able to witness that as well. And so you ask, like, how do I handle it? It's like, well, I've had some very good guides in my life that I've been able to look up to, which is both my mother and my father. And they're both super active in the Angel Aid community now. My mother attends every support group that she possibly can. And my father just helped host the first men's retreat at Barrett Family Ranch. So
That's
so
remarkable. I
as a
mean, what you've
family, we're all
started is you've
involved.
helped heal them in the whole process.
I'd like to think so.
For
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you truly are an angel. I love the name that you have created for this community because you are. This is just remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it feels very divinely led. So it's interesting that you say that. Angel is actually a moniker, a nonprofit group
Okay.
enriching lives. So believe it or not, Angel came about because my Pi Beta Phi sorority sisters, who helped me found the organization back in the year 2000, we were a bunch of 20-year-olds that had just come out of college, and I got us all together. We used to get together on Monday nights and watch Ally McBeal, remember,
I
and like
remember that show.
90210. I'm totally
Yeah.
aging myself right now, but back in the day, we would get together on Monday nights, have a glass of wine, watch the shows and everything. And I started getting into genetics at work. And then I was like, gosh, and digging into this and realizing that maybe we should try to, organize our party planning into some sort of philanthropic endeavor. And so we just started chatting about it. And angels are the guiding light, or the mascot of Pi Beta Phi sorority. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we came up with
I
angels.
love all the
Yeah,
connections. That's
yeah,
very interesting.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, is there one story from a family that you think you would like to share, that you experienced, that you think their story kind of stands out, that you would like to share with all of us?
Gosh, that is so hard because there are so many
So many.
stories, so many. But I'll share this story. It's the story of the DeRosier family. So Jeremy and Jamie DeRosier live in Boston. He is a police officer on the police force there in Massachusetts, and she's a stay-at-home mom, very creative, very active socially as well. And they had two children, and it became clear to Jamie that her son and her daughter were not developing in the standard ways, missing milestones. Now they call it missing
So
milestones.
both of
So
the kids?
both of the children. It started with Aubriella, the eldest daughter, and then she could see the same sort of odd happenings with their son Bryce. And so they went into the hospital. They went through many diagnostics. On average, it can take 8 years to get an accurate diagnosis. Now, when a third of the children are passing away by their fifth birthday, turning 8 years old, a
Yeah.
lot of times children have passed away and they don't even know why, because
Why?
during their lifetime, there's not a clear answer. But for the Drosier family, they did get an answer, and it was mitochondrial disease, which causes severe impacts on health and development, on gut health, and it causes epileptic seizures. And those seizures start out as just once in a while, and then they become more and more frequent, and eventually the children pass away from the seizures. So they knew what the reality was going to look like. And what I will say about Jamie is she accepted it and decided she was going to be the best mom she could be to those two kids until the day they died. And she was. And the surprising part of this is that Bryce passed away first. He was the youngest. So he actually passed away at 18 months. Aubriella passed away when she was almost 8 years old. And we witnessed that journey with the DeRosier family. Jamie was one of the very first mothers, rare mothers, to be flown in to Barrett Family Ranch for respite. So she'd lost Bryce already, and she was losing Aubriella, and she just wanted to have a few days. I know it makes me cry too, but just a few days away to process her emotions. So she came to our first women's retreat in 2019. And we were very bonded. It was the first time we'd shared the Sustainable Mom, which is now the Sustainable Caregiver methodology. So that was the first group of women. My mother was part of that group. And I'm sorry.
No,
I'm usually pretty contained.
No.
Jamie's very special in my heart. So Jamie went back to Boston, and we just kind of watched her from afar, engaged with her through our app, engaged with her through social media, she would come to support groups now and again. But we always say, in our logo, we have an arrow for strength and a feather for grace. And we are the through line with these families. So we're just, growing as Angel Aid and bringing more and more people into our community, even through COVID. And I say even through COVID, but the need for our services was so intensified through COVID. So we just launched everything digitally at that point. And so Jamie would join from Boston, and then Aubriella passed away. And it was just so tragic. And we couldn't accept that as a community. And we have a lot of loved ones pass in our community, but that one in particular just really hit us hard. And so we did a reunion retreat and flew Jamie back and flew the gals back and got everybody together again. So then that was very special, and I'm grateful to our sponsors for making donations so that we could make that dream happen. And Jamie went back to Boston, and it turns out she was pregnant. She didn't know it when she was with us, but it turns out she was pregnant, and she was very quiet about it. She didn't tell anybody. None of us knew she was pregnant. She and her husband, Jeremy, decided not to talk about it because everybody was so, in their community, was so traumatized by the loss, living through the loss with them. I mean, Bryce passed away, and they had a 180 block shutdown by the police department in Boston to bring him home, to his dying day. I mean, it was just like, when I say community, I mean like massive community of people have witnessed the DeRosier family. And so they were very quiet about their pregnancy. They had their baby, and their baby does not have mitochondrial disease. So it's this beautiful story, right? I know. We were all holding our breath. They were holding their breath because it was this accidental pregnancy, and the outcome was going to be the outcome for them. And turns out this child does not have mitochondrial disease. So now we have this miracle baby in our life. Okay, so
truly a miracle.
Here's the full circle, because that's not even the end. This is the gestalt. This is the full circle. Jeremy, we flew Jeremy out to be in our first men's retreat this June. And he was able to share this journey with these other men in like this full, the full tapestry of love and birth and loss and birth again and forgiveness and all this perspective, right? And what did we say? Suffering sows the seeds of empathy. And Jeremy is like one of the most empathetic humans on the planet. And he shared all of that lived experience with the other fathers in the community. And gosh, I could go right back into tears on that. But Jamie sent me a note after that, and she just said, I can't believe it. I can't believe what Angel Aid has done for my family. So that's why I do what I do every day for the Jamie DeRosier and the Jeremy DeRosier family.
What a fulfilling, like, it's just such a self-rewarding like job, like what you're doing every day. I mean, that's what we all want, right? That you realize, okay, you're making an impact. And I'm sure there's so many more, like you said, stories like them. But imagine if it was just one, it doesn't even matter. If you had made just one impact for one person, that's all that it matters. But this is such a, and I love how your Angel Aid provides men's retreat, because a lot of times we kind of overlook that. It's always about the moms. Of course, a lot of the times the mothers can be more involved. It's difficult, but men need this as well. And it's hard for them to express their feelings, and they want to be extra masculine and take care of their family. And when they realize that they can't do it and this is out of their control, it's a huge burden for them. So I love how you have this and you provide this service for them as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. And thank you to our sponsor, Horizon Therapeutics, and also the many, many donations that went into making that happen, because it is impactful. We flew in men from around the world, literally, from London, from Eugene, Oregon, from Las Vegas, Nevada, from Cincinnati, from Boston, and there's hard costs associated with that. And we can't scale in-person men's and women's retreats. We use those as opportunities to validate the methodologies that we're using, and make sure that we're staying current on our relief tactics, meditations and sound baths. We use equine therapy. We use all of these different tactics, and really, at the end of the day, it's about witnessing, and we can witness digitally. So we do, weekly support groups, monthly support groups, all through Zoom, and we're starting to layer in multilingual support groups. And so we can push those structures out, around the world, and with this beautiful relationship with Microsoft, where Microsoft employees donate their time and energy as volunteers, and have launched everything from our website for us, our mobile app. They help us with our language translation, on our video editing services, all of those things. So that's that technology background coming into play here, because we want to bring relief to as many people as we can. Right. Our goal is 3.5 million, which seems like a huge number. That's only 1% of the global rare disease community, right? 350 million people. So we have to have a collective. We view ourselves as the catalyst. We're like at the top of every one of the 7 summits waving the flag. Like, we need mental health support services within rare disease communities, but it comes down to women and men listening to a podcast, taking this in, watching on TV, seeing something in the media, taking this in and saying, wait a second, I'm gonna take a moment to actually start up a conversation at school with that mom. Or I'm gonna take a moment to acknowledge in the line in the grocery stand, that woman or that man buying groceries, with their child in a wheelchair or with a walker or something. I'm just gonna witness and just say, I see you. I just wanted to say hi and just let you know that I care, right? And I think because of COVID, the planet has become sensitized to disability, unique abilities, those cycles of isolation. We've all experienced them now. I mean, rare families are just isolated. Well, we've all been isolated. So aren't we all now able to find some common ground and just be there for each other? So it's not just me, it's not just Angel Aid, it's not just our team and the work that we're doing. It's you as an audience, as a listener, to know that you can make change just by looking someone in the eye.
Right.
Just being brave.
We all want to be seen, and just having someone acknowledge that makes a huge difference.
It does. It does.
Now, Crystal, what advice can you give to all the caregivers, like mothers? How can these caregivers sustain, themselves to still be able to love and care for those who need them, but be able to, what kind of reassurance do you give them for coping skills so that they can be resilient and handle? Because that's a lot to take. I know that's like a fully loaded question, but how can they survive? Because they need to be strong so they can take care of their whole family.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no one answer to that question. As you said, it's a fully loaded question, but I think what it starts with is grace. just giving yourself some grace and permission and recognition that you are your own person, that it is disheartening, upsetting, tragically disappointing what has happened to this loved one. They are separate from you. You are a soul, they are a soul. And if you can tend to your own soul, if you can do your soul care, then you're going to be much more available to that loved one and the other ones in the family as well. So it's like we give and we give and we give. That's our basic empathetic response as human beings. That's what makes us human, right? But we give so much of ourselves that we lose ourselves in the process. And you don't need to have someone with a rare disease or a genetic disease to understand this concept. We do it in motherhood. We do it in womanhood. We do it
You're
just
drained out. You're empty.
You're just empty. And so recognizing how important it is to just take back a few moments of every day. You don't have to go on a 4-day retreat, although if you want to, God bless you, I encourage you to do it. What we're talking about is a few deep breaths while you're making your coffee, or that ritual of having a bath at the end of the day, just for 5 or 8 minutes, or waking up and going, this is a particularly hard day today. I know it's going to be. I'm going to embellish myself. I'm going to put on all of my visual, empowerment tools. So I every morning I wake up and I put my Wonder Woman bands on, whether it's these or anything else. But I'm always like, okay, I got to gear up for the morning. And then I see them on my wrists and I'm like, I'm stronger than I know.
And it's so funny because I have these special bracelets that I wear, and it just makes me like, okay. And a lot, oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice. A lot of them have a different message. Yes. So it's like a reminder, like I remember why I have them, why I'm wearing them. So that's great. So now I'm going to think like, okay, these are my Superwoman bracelets are coming on.
Yes. So these are mindfulness tools, right? You're making yourself attuned to your own self-care and self-interest and self-awareness. And that can be really, really powerful. It can be really, and these are the ancient arts. These are not things that you aren't aware of. Right. Eat well, make sure you're getting enough sleep, exercise, right? But come into community if it's particularly hard, not just to be witnessed in conversation, but to be witnessed as you're incorporating these tools into your life, because that is the ticket to sustainable well-being. And you keep yourself strong and everybody else around you rises.
Exactly. That's what we need. Now, in your experience, what should we do as a society to better support people suffering from mental illness, just needing a better mental well-being?
Yeah, so it's happening, and it was forced upon us through this pandemic experience, right? So I think there's a sensitization happening in society in general. We've got athletes stepping forward, celebrities stepping forward, politicians stepping forward saying, I can't perform, even, corporate executives, I can't perform for you, for society, for anybody else, unless I'm taking care of myself. So they're starting to give themselves permission, and then that influences us giving ourselves permission. So that's important. In the rare disease space, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We already know in military and veterans caregiving, in senior caregiving, Alzheimer's, dementia caregiving, how important it is to pay attention to the primary caregiver and to whole family mental health. Okay, so we already have the constructs and the actually correlation in our brain. Right. We just need to bring it over here. So all of our focus and attention over here is on research and science and treatments and cures. We just need to pull back the lens a bit and focus more on holistic healthcare, quality of life, emotional well-being, and one of the pathways to that is treatments and cures for the actual, underlying conditions. So it's really a frame of reference, and I think any of us can do it. And it doesn't have to be in rare disease. It's that's what I'm all about, is talking to women, talking to families, talking to people, talking to the general public about stop, slow down, take a moment, quiet reflection. Every single day, I get up in the dark usually, but even in the light, I get up and I light my candle. I make my coffee and I reflect just for a couple of minutes. Sometimes I don't have time to reflect for very long, but just to stop and reflect, what is today meant to be? And then go through your day from there. And that's just like my gift to you. A few deep breaths, some goddess or god coffee in the morning, and light a candle. And I think we can like light candles all over the world and change everything.
It's such a simple method. And I feel like if we can all learn to kind of take that from you and start our morning with that kind of energy. I mean, I know that's been a huge thing with, miracle of mornings and shifting. So I really like that. I'm going to try it. I think that's great. Now, on another note, when we had talked earlier, you had mentioned to me that you had the privilege of being invited to the She Conference back in May in Baku. So if you can tell us what She stands for, what is her mission, and how was your experience? I mean, it just seems so fascinating to me. What an amazing experience, and what a privilege that you were invited. So if you can tell us more about that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So the She Congress was established by a very brave and courageous woman named Irina Rubis. And she hosted a series of conferences in the Ukraine over many years in the 90s and 2000s. Okay, so She stands for Smart, Happy, Equal. And these were congresses, these were gatherings of women to talk about women's empowerment and what women can do to empower each other and themselves. That construct was exported by Irina to Baku, Azerbaijan, and Tatiana Mayokalis has brought She Congress into Azerbaijan. And this was the second She Congress sponsored by the United Nations, sponsored by Yellow Bank, sponsored by quite a few big corporations. There were 500 small and medium business owners and women, so all women that owned small and medium businesses that had an interest in learning on a global stage about women's empowerment and how to kind of keep themselves sustained, not only personally and emotionally, but also professionally. So it was sort of this mixed agenda. It was magic. I was so happy to be there. I did fortuitously reach out to the US Aid Department before I left, just to put me on their radar, let them know I'm going into the Middle East and that I'm going to be attending this environment. And it's really interesting because, the concern at that time, there wasn't a concern. Baku is a very contemporary city. The Formula One races are there. I mean, it was magic the whole time I was there. This was back in the beginning of the year. And now the country of Azerbaijan is actually going through major political upheaval as they are witnessing some cultural conflicts with Armenia, those of Armenian descent and others. And so it's interesting how you have these like foreshadowings. I felt like I needed to be safe. I have a caregiving responsibility here. I work with my father and mother, and obviously my daughter and family and Angel Aid and others. So I wanted to make sure that I was safe. But I was, and it was an amazing environment, and it gave me a perspective on just the universal need to be reminded that our own self-care comes first, and then we can travel through life caring for others.
What a great experience. That's just seems phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. So, in conclusion, our journey today has revealed the immense challenges faced by families caring for loved ones with rare diseases. Throughout our exploration, we have also witnessed the extraordinary power of courage personified by Cristol. She transformed a childhood trauma into a source of inspiration, dedicating herself to giving back to the community. Cristol's empathy for these families stems from her firsthand experience of witnessing her parents' pain. Throughout her efforts, she has cultivated a compassionate and supportive community. Furthermore, She has provided caregivers with essential tools to care for themselves, enabling them to remain resilient in their roles. A rare disease is a pressing public health issue, but thanks to individuals like Cristol, we now have Angel Aid, a beacon of hope and relief for those who need it most. Cristol embodies an angel spirit, guiding and supporting those on their challenging journeys. Cristol, thank you so much for being on my show today. If you can tell us, how can others find more information about Angel Aid? How can people make donations to help? And also tell us about, I believe there's a global festival of wellness that's coming up. If you can tell us more about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So always it starts with a website. angelaidcares.org is our website. And if you go to the website, the first thing you'll see is join our community. And that can be joining the community as a donor. It can be joining the community as a volunteer. It can be joining the community as a rare mother or rare father, or someone that just has an interest in the work that we do. So join our community is basically subscribe to our communications, and then we're constantly publishing out what the next big thing is. That's also where you would find, if you are part of the rare disease community, where you would find the links to join the weekly support groups whenever we have our wellness retreats coming up, and any other support opportunities. And then from an awareness standpoint, we're fortunate. We're so lucky. We've had this relationship with Microsoft, and each year during Give Month, which is the full month of October, we invite our community to make donations to Angel Aid. And Microsoft is inviting their employee community to do the same and providing a match to every donation that's made to Angel Aid. So it's a huge fundraiser for us. It's how we fund our mental health and wellness services. It's on average about $1,000 a year per caregiver for us to take them through the training, provide the weekly and monthly support. We often also ship uplifting gifts into the home, and we're conducting our own mental health research so that we can quantify the effect of mindfulness and connection and empathy and all of these, like I said, ancient arts that we bring to bear for our community. So angelaidcares.org/give is where you'll find all the information about our global festival of wellness. We're offering daily wellness experiences for our community to come in and experience the same meditations and fitness offerings and author talks and inspirational conversations that we share with our community. It's kind of our give to get. So we're giving as much wellness and love as we can, and we're inviting as much support as you are able to make.
Perfect. We will share all the links in our show notes so that our listeners can hopefully help and make Angel Aid bigger and better as it already is. But thank you so much, Cristol. It was a privilege to have you on Female Fluence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Pearl Mashur, a Female Fluence, on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you're in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.